Have you ever stopped to wonder why happiness can feel so fragile? Why even the best moments of our lives seem to have this little ticking clock on them? Today, we're going to dive deep into a really profound teaching from the book Zazen that traces this whole experience all the way back to two root emotions, longing and doubt.
I mean, think about it. We all chase happiness, right? But why does it feel so slippery, so hard to hold on to? It's almost like the second you finally get what you want, this new anxiety creeps in, the fear of losing it. So why is it that our greatest joys so often pave the way for our deepest sorrows? Well, the source material points us to a core insight from the Buddha himself. He says that what most of us think of as happiness is really just the suffering of change. Because it's temporary, the moment it fades or gets taken away, it flips into suffering. And you know how it goes. The bigger the high, the harder the crash. And it turns out this isn't just random bad luck. There's a predictable chain reaction here, an emotional domino effect. The text lays out this almost universal path that shows how our search for happiness can, paradoxically, lead us straight into suffering. Here's how it plays out. It all starts with joy, right? That awesome feeling of getting something you wanted. But almost immediately, that joy sparks worry about losing it. That worry then grows into a genuine fear of loss. And if or when that loss actually happens, fear becomes sadness. From there, it's a really short leap for that sadness to curdle into anger or even hatred toward people who still have what you lost. Sound familiar? Okay, so if that's the chain reaction, what's the very first link? What's the thing that kicks this whole painful process into gear in the first place? Well, the source material traces it all the way back to two fundamental states of mind. This entire emotional roller coaster starts with two core emotions that the text says are on the exact same level: doubt and longing. You can almost think of them as these twin gateways that lead to all the rest. So the first gateway is what the text calls the emotion of doubting. Now, this isn't about being skeptical of the news or something. This is a much deeper, more fundamental question that pops up whenever we face the great unknown. The text gives this really powerful image. Imagine someone deep in meditation, surrounded by just a vast, empty darkness. And the simple thought arises, what's in here? You know how it is. Once a question pops into your head, your brain just has to find an answer, right? A question can't just hang there in a void. Our minds are wired to fill in the blanks, to solve the puzzle. And this is the absolute key. To answer its own question, the mind just makes something up. It creates a hypothesis. There must be someone else in here with me. And in that single instant, the moment it assumes an other exists, it automatically creates a self that is separate from that other. And boom. With that separation, the feeling of loneliness is born. And that is the birth of emotional longing. Now, let's be super clear about this. This isn't about missing your family or your partner. This is a much more basic, objectless feeling of being alone. It's the raw material, the root feeling that comes before we attach it to any specific person. This chart just illustrates it perfectly. This is why the text says these two emotions are on the same level. They're two sides of the very same coin. It doesn't matter if you start with the intellectual question of doubt or the raw feeling of longing. Both paths lead directly to a state of unease, and from there to agitation. They're setting the stage for that whole chain of suffering we just talked about. But get this fundamental loneliness, it doesn't just stay inside our own heads as some private feeling. The text argues that it's an incredibly powerful creative force. It's literally the engine that builds our entire reality, from our personal relationships all the way up to our collective societies. I mean, think about it. When you're all alone, your daydreams or your ideas, they're pretty flimsy, right? They can come and go. But that core loneliness, it drives us to find other people. And when our individual dreams, our illusions, merge with the illusions of others who feel that same longing, suddenly the dream becomes a shared reality, what the text calls shared karma. The illusion gets solid. So this deep-seated drive to escape loneliness basically pushes us into one of two camps. Some of us become active seekers. We go out into that darkness, trying to find others. And then some of us are more passive waiters. We stay put and just send out a wish, a hope that someone else will come and find us. Okay, stick with me here, because this is where it gets really wild. According to the text, these two energies, the seekers and the waiters, they eventually find each other. The seekers are drawn into the worlds, the realities created by the waiters. But here's the kicker. The process of rebirth erases their memory. So these newcomers arrive with total amnesia. They see this powerful waiter who created the world they're in, and they just assume, wow, you must be the creator of everything. This, the text suggests, is the psychological root of creation myths.
And this isn't just some ancient myth-making stuff. The text argues that this exact dynamic, where a limited perspective becomes an absolute truth, can shape entire societies. It points to the origin of India's caste system. A practitioner supposedly saw back through his past lives, but only up to a certain point. He mistook the god Brahma for the ultimate creator of everything, and that one limited, mistaken view became the foundation for a rigid social hierarchy that trapped millions of people for generations. It shows how one being's dream can become everyone else's prison. All right, so if doubt and longing are the architects of these massive, elaborate worlds of suffering, from our own personal heartbreaks to entire social systems, how in the world do we get out? Well, the text doesn't just leave us there. It proposes a path forward, a path of conscious contemplation. So how do we actually work with these incredibly powerful root emotions? The text lays out two main paths. If you're someone who leans toward doubt and questioning, you can follow a path of knowledge, of inquiry, of deconstructing your own illusions piece by piece. This can lead to rebirth in some pretty nice heavenly realms. But there's a catch. They're so comfortable and blissful that you might just forget why you started practicing in the first place. On the other hand, if your nature leans more toward longing, you can follow a path of devotion. You can channel that deep desire for connection toward a spiritual ideal, like a Pure Land. The big advantage here, the text says, is that a place like the Pure Land is specifically designed to be a perfect spiritual training ground, ensuring you keep making progress toward full liberation. So let's wrap this up. What are the big ideas to take away from all this? First, the entire chain of emotional suffering, from a tiny worry to raging hatred, all of it grows from just two roots: doubt and longing. Second, these two roots spring from a simple question about the unknown, which creates a feeling of loneliness so powerful it drives us to build our shared worlds, our collective illusions. And finally, and this is the most hopeful part, the path to freedom isn't about running away from these emotions. It's about turning around, looking them straight in the eye, and understanding them directly. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If a simple, almost innocent question, like what's in the darkness, truly has the power to build an entire world of suffering, doesn't it make you wonder if a different kind of question, a different kind of looking, might just have the power to take it all apart?